spooky story starts in the village of Pelly, Saskatchewan. I worked at a grocery store in high school, and oftentimes, because it's a small town, we would be working by ourselves, and you would hear footsteps in the aisle beside you, and you'd go and you'd look, and there was no one there. And then sometimes you would hear the metal doors to the meat room swinging back and forth and creaking, and you'd go and look on the security cameras, and there was no one there. And I wasn't the only one that heard it. There was other people that worked there too that would hear the same thing. I'm trying to turn it off and I can't find the button.
So, the current house that we're living in had a very strong reaction to a piece of furniture, I guess. The first time we viewed the house, there was a massive piano in the basement, and instantly I had a massive dislike, and it made me feel anxious and angry. So fast forward a few months and we purchased this house. We moved out all of the old owner's stuff, but the piano remained because it was so huge we couldn't get it out of the basement. And we learned that the house was actually built on top of the piano. That's how big it was, and it had been in his family for a very long time. At 3 a.m. one night, I woke up. I'm not sure why. I was awake, I could not fall back asleep, and then all of a sudden I heard the piano playing downstairs. And it wasn't a song, it was just sort of these like ominous tones every so often. I got out of bed to make sure that the kids weren't playing a prank on me, and eventually I was so terrified that I woke my husband, because am I going crazy or is this piano actually playing? So when I woke my husband, he basically said, yeah, right. And I made him stay awake for an hour, and several times we heard the piano playing. Both of us were too scared to go downstairs, and we just laid awake in bed listening to the piano. So about an hour and a half later, the piano stopped, and we heard massive, slow footprints in the hallway in front of our bedroom. And I have been begging my husband to get rid of this piano for weeks. Needless to say, after this incident, we destroyed the piano. We took an axe to the piano and shoved the pieces outside the window to get rid of it. And instantly I felt better. I wasn't anxious in the basement anymore, or angry or afraid. So I'm very glad the haunted piano is gone.
Okay, so my spooky story takes place at Cold Lake. We went to the museum there, and there's this legend that the totem pole still has the spirit connected to it. So we went through the museum, and everything was fine until we stopped at the totem pole to take a picture. I took the first picture, and there's this white blur in front of me. So we thought it was weird, maybe a reflection from the camera, maybe something else. So everybody else in the group took a picture in front of this totem, and nobody else had this white blur. So I decided to go again. But again, there was this white shadow standing right in front of me. Then the room went really, really cold, and I got out.
When I was about 21, 22, I had just finished college. I was an EMT on the rigs. This job was out by Hinton, about 2 hours in the bush. I was alone, driving my MTC. We're on the ice roads. I was deep in the bush again, driving over a bridge. There were 2 yellow posts on either side. They did have reflective striping. And I remember driving very slowly and cautiously on the ice roads. And I could see like a hazy white or purple something on the right-hand side by the yellow post. And as I got closer and closer, I could see the outline, and it was a woman, and she had her back turned to the bridge. So right away I was concerned as to why a woman is an hour and a half into the bush outside of Hinton. So I slowed down even more. I went to roll down my window and speak to her, but as I drew closer, I could see that something was wrong, that this was not a human. So I had an incident, or I had a moment where I thought I should be terrified, but I was actually surprisingly calm. And as I drove past her, she turned and looked right at me, and her gaze followed me as I drove across the bridge. And I was so shocked that I parked the truck and got out, and I was probably standing about 10 feet away from her, and I just remember asking, like, who are you? What are you? And she just continued to stare at me. She didn't say a word. So I calmly got back in the truck, still in disbelief. And when I looked in my rearview mirror, she was gone, completely gone.
Took a trip to Ottawa, Ontario by train. And I stayed in a jail hostel. Spooky. And in this jail hostel, we slept on old prison beds and inside old jail cells. Every single time somebody moves on their bed at night, it's squeaky and creaky. And then we went on the jail tour and we got to death row. You walk in through the door and there's this big brush of cold wind coming at you. It's very spooky. And then we're doing our tour through the cells, checking out death row, and we come to the place where they hang the prisoners with the old noose still there, blowing in the wind. And we went to the courtyard where we could see the big cement walls all around us, towering over us, and they had glass shards embedded in the walls so that prisoners could